She stood frozen in the corridor, her breath catching as the guard's hands slammed the prisoner against the iron bars, the metallic clang echoing like a gunshot. His shouts filled the cell block, raw and desperate, until the room fell deathly silent, a silence that screamed louder than any voice could. Wherever you're watching from, whether it's New York, London, Chicago, or Manchester, share this story. Let it spark conversations about justice, power, and what happens behind those iron bars. He was called Marcus Tate, a 32-year-old man locked in the county jail on charges he swore didn't fit. A father of two, he'd been picked up for a robbery he claimed he didn't commit. His voice steady but eyes tired when he spoke to the public defender. The jail was a gray, concrete maze in a small Midwest town, where the air always smelled of bleach and sweat. Marcus had been there 3 months, his days a cycle of monotony, meals on trays, fluorescent lights buzzing, and guards who watched every move like hawks. She was Officer Karen Wells, a 15-year veteran of the corrections system, known for her sharp tongue and no-nonsense attitude. Most inmates respected her, some feared her, but none crossed her lightly. She'd seen it all, fights, scams, breakdowns, but something about Marcus got under her skin. Maybe it was his quiet defiance, the way he'd look at her, not with anger but with a calm that felt like a challenge. They were the other inmates, a mix of men from different walks, all watching from their cells that night. The cell block was a pressure cooker, tension simmering from overcrowded bunks and whispered rumors of who'd snitched or who'd fight next. That evening, the air felt heavier, like everyone knew something was coming. It started over something small. Marcus had asked for an extra blanket. Nights were cold, and his thin one barely covered him. Wells, on duty, snapped back, "You get what you get, Tate." Her voice was clipped, carrying that edge she used to keep order. Marcus didn't back down. "I'm just asking to stay warm, ma'am. Ain't breaking no rules." His tone was even, but his eyes locked on hers, unyielding. The other inmates watched, their murmurs quieting. Wells stepped closer, her boots loud on the concrete. "You think you're special," she said, her voice low but sharp enough to cut. Marcus didn't flinch. "I'm just a man, same as anybody." That's when it happened. Her hands shot out, grabbing his shirt, and she shoved him hard against the bars. The clang rang out, and Marcus's head snapped back, his eyes wide with shock but not fear. "Say it again," Wells hissed, her face inches from his. The other guards standing at the end of the block didn't move. They just watched, their radios crackling softly. Marcus's voice stayed steady, though his breath was ragged. "I'm just a man." She pushed harder, the bars pressing into his back, and the room held its breath. The inmates were silent now, their eyes darting between Marcus and Wells, waiting for what came next. The tension didn't break that night. Wells let go, stepping back with a glare, and Marcus slid down to the floor, his back against the bars. He didn't say another word, but his silence spoke louder than any shout. The other inmates started whispering again, their voices a low hum that carried through the block. "She went too far." One said, "He didn't do nothing." Another muttered. The guards at the end of the corridor finally moved, one of them telling everyone to quiet down, but the air stayed thick. Over the next few days, the incident became the pulse of the cell block. Marcus kept to himself, but his calm demeanor only fueled the rumors. Some said he was planning to file a complaint, others that he was biding his time for something bigger. Wells, meanwhile, was sharper than ever, her eyes scanning the block like she was daring anyone to bring it up. The other guards noticed too. One, a younger officer named Daniels, pulled her aside after a shift. "You good, Karen?" he asked. She brushed him off, "Just doing my job." But she wasn't fine. She'd heard the whispers, felt the stares. She'd been in the system long enough to know how stories like this spread, how they could twist into something bigger. She started watching Marcus closer, noting every move he made, every word he said to his cellmate. She told herself it was about control, about keeping order, but deep down, she knew it was personal now. Marcus, on the other hand, didn't change. He wrote letters to his kids, met with his lawyer, and kept his head down, but he wasn't invisible. The other inmates started looking to him, nodding when he passed, slipping him extra food from their trays. He didn't ask for it, but he didn't refuse it either. One night, an older inmate, A lifer named Ray leaned close to the bars and said, "You keep standing tall, kid. They hate that most." The cell block was a ticking clock. Every interaction between Marcus and Wells was charged, like a storm waiting to break. She'd bark orders, he'd follow them slowly, deliberately, never giving her the reaction she seemed to want. The other inmates fed off it, their conversations growing louder, more heated. "She's got it out for him," one said. "He's gonna push back." Another predicted. The guards sensed it too. Daniels started lingering near Marcus's cell, like he was waiting for something to happen. Then came the night of the second incident. It was late, the lights dimmed for lockdown. Marcus was at his bunk, writing another letter, when Wells walked by on her rounds. She stopped, staring at him. "Still writing, Tate," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. He looked up, pen still in hand. "Yeah, gotta tell my kids I'm still here." She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You think you're some kind of hero, don't you?" He set the pen down, his movements slow. "I'm no hero, just trying to get through." She stepped closer to the bars, her voice dropping. "You're not getting through anything unless I say so." The words hung there, heavy, and the other inmates nearby went quiet again. Marcus stood facing her, his hands loose at his sides. "You don't own me, officer." That's when she grabbed him again, faster this time, slamming him against the bars so hard the sound echoed down the block. The inmates started shouting, banging on their own bars, a chaotic chorus of anger and protest. "Let him go," one yelled. "You can't do that," another screamed. Wells held him there, her knuckles white, her face a mask of fury. Marcus didn't fight back, didn't struggle, just stared at her, his eyes burning with that same calm defiance. Daniels rushed over, pulling Wells back. "Enough, Karen," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. She let go, stepping back, her chest heaving. Marcus stayed against the bars, his breathing heavy but his gaze steady. The room went quiet again, the inmates' shouts fading into a tense, uneasy silence. Daniels looked between them, his face tight. "Everybody calm down," he said, but no one missed the way his hand rested on his radio, ready to call for backup. The next morning, the cell block was buzzing, but Marcus was gone. Not released, not transferred. Gone. His cell was empty, his few belongings cleared out. The inmates whispered, their voices a mix of anger and confusion. "They took him." Ray said, his voice low. "Happens when you push back too hard." No one knew where, not even the lawyer who showed up later that day, demanding answers. The official report said Marcus had been moved for security reasons. But the details were vague, the paperwork locked away. Wells was quieter after that. She did her rounds, gave her orders, but the fire in her voice was gone. Some said she'd been warned, others that she'd requested a transfer. Daniels wouldn't talk about it, just shook his head when asked. The inmates, though, didn't let it go. They talked about Marcus in hushed tones, his name becoming a kind of legend in the block. He didn't break, they'd say, even when she tried to make him. The truth about what happened that night stayed locked in the silence of the cell block, buried in reports no one outside would ever see. But the story spread through inmates released, through families who heard whispers, through a system that couldn't quite erase what had happened. Marcus's defiance, Wells's rage, and that final, deafening quiet became a spark, a question that lingered. Who really held the power behind those bars? Wherever you are, Atlanta, Birmingham, Dublin, or Sydney, don't let this story fade. Share it, ask questions. Demand the truth about what happens in those concrete walls. Because silence is where stories like Marcus's get buried.